Okay. I'd like to call the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Tonight are going to be addressing the application for a variance for the Chick-fil-A on Alpine. But first, we need to okay our minutes from our last meeting.
I'd like to make an edit to the minutes.
Okay.
Mariel Versluis was not in attendance at the meeting, so she needs to be moved to member absent instead of member present. Thank you.
Okay. Any other changes? Nope. Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Jeff.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
As amended.
So I
Okay.
second that.
Okay. That's supported by Roger. All in favor?
As amended.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. We've also got a period of few minutes here for any public comment, but I don't think there's anyone out there that's here for this, so we'll move on with that. So, on the agenda is the Chick-fil-A signage issue, and before we get into it, I don't know, Frank, do you want to add anything before we get into it?
Sure. Well, why don't I do this? I'll give you kind of an orientation to the site. Paula provided you folks with a pretty detailed report. Glad to get into that if you'd like. And then we have the applicants here. So I think the applicants will do the majority of the talking, and I'll just kind of orient you to the site. You're looking at two variances for a new Chick-fil-A on the site of the former Golden Corral. And so the Planning Commission has approved the plan. Construction is underway. And now what happens a lot of times is the signage kind of comes in last. So that's why you folks are here. They looked at their plans and figured that they would request a couple of variances. The site itself, just so you're aware, up on the Alpine Avenue corridor, North Center is on the east side of Alpine Avenue, this area, and then Old Orchard is on the west. A little bit odd to have two different street names there, but one came before the other. So this stretch of Old Orchard is a public street, and then Alpine's obviously public as well. So under the code, they're allowed 80 square feet of wall signage that would face a combination of Alpine and Old Orchard. So what they're asking for is, and that would be total for the entire site. And then wall signage would be allowed facing the public streets. So one, you could put wall signage on Alpine, you could put wall signage on Old Orchard. And what you see in their application is they're asking for, I believe it's 33 square feet of additional wall signage overall, and then 2 additional wall signs. One would go on the north side of the building and one would go on the west side facing the apartments. So in a nutshell, that's their application from a staff standpoint. So I'm not going to get into any details. I'll let these folks talk about it a little bit more. But they are dimensional variances. They're asking for more of something, right? More area, more signs. So anything that's dimensional has a spatial component to it. So that's why we wanted to start with a map. And then what I'm going to do is get out of the way here, and I'll leave this up, which was also in your packet. And just to orient you to this plan, this is Alpine Avenue on the right side of the map, and then Old Orchard Drive on the south. Here is the approved building that's under construction, parking lot to the west. And they have wall signage proposed on the wall facing Alpine as B1, so they did a nice job showing you what those are going to look like. B2 is on the south side of the building. You see what those are going to look like. And then I think they did an excellent job showing that B3, variance required, 25 square foot sign, and then B4, also variance required, a kind of script sign, obviously in the Chick-fil-A text. So that in a nutshell is it. I will get out of the way, try to assist where needed, but otherwise I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
Okay, thank you. The property that we're discussing at Chick-fil-A at 3461 Alpine in Walker, the applicant is City Sign Erectors, 2824 3 Mile in Grand Rapids. And as Frank said, the variances for additional signage. So is the applicant here? Okay, did you go to the microphone? And
Good there. All right, good evening. Justin Lurk. I'm with Chick-fil-A. I'm our principal development leader over the Midwest region and have worked on, do you need an address for the records?
Pardon?
Do you need my address for the records?
Yeah, please.
Okay, 5200 Buffington Road, Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you all for hearing us out tonight. Great start for the presentation here, but as mentioned, looking for 2 additional signs as a variance, and then larger square footage as the second variant. So when we started this process, months and months ago, we had our traditional pre-application meeting, and we knew that signage wasn't discussed then, but just overall discussion, we knew it had to come to a separate process here. There was some talks about the access drive on the western edge of our property that leads into the shopping center to the north of us, as potentially being considered a street as well, or a street frontage that would allow 3 signs. Whether or not that's the final decision, we'll leave that up to you all. But I think we went into this thinking we would get at least 3 signs, but was going to ask for a variance for the 4th sign on the north side. The hardship there just being the outback, being a bit closer to Alpine Avenue than what our building would be to meet all the building setbacks. So those customers traveling southbound on Alpine Avenue, we'd love to catch their attention with a sign on the north side. Traditionally, and like our other location out on Wilson and Lake Michigan, sorry, I was trying to think of the cross street there, but Wilson, Lake Michigan, you would see those script signs on our building. Traditionally, we try to keep the script signs on the building and the icon on the freestanding signs. We're trying to fit within your code ordinances, so the icons are a little smaller from a square footage standpoint, so that's why you're seeing us propose those on this building to try to fit within that total square footage range. Again, ideally, we'd like to see the script logos on the building and just one icon over the front door. That's traditionally where we put it on the freestanding sign and then over the front door. But we'd be willing to acquiesce here and get smaller signs on the building to get more of those on the building as well, to try to fit within your ordinances as much as possible. So that's our request in a nutshell. 30,000 square foot, 30,000 foot view anyway. Again, our other location, we've got 3 building signs and 2 freestanding signs, total of 5. We're looking for a total of 5 here, just 4 building and 1 freestanding. So, feel like the request is reasonable, but we're here to answer any questions you may have, talk about any concerns you may have, and just happy to be here in front of you on this beautiful day.
Okay, perfect. Okay, do I have a motion to open the meeting?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, motion by Elena, support? Support? Yes. By Jeff, okay. All in favor of opening the meeting? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, meeting's open. Okay. Board, do you have any questions?
You want me to start?
Go right ahead.
Where to start? Okay. Going through this application, going out, looking at the site, and doing a little surveying on my own, in order to grant a variance, there's certain criteria that has to be met. And one of that criteria is that there are exceptional, extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question as to the intent of the use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district. Looking at that site, knowing what has been there, and knowing what our zoning ordinance states regarding signing, I personally cannot find an exceptional or an extraordinary circumstance with that piece of property that warrants signs other than on Alpine and Old Orchard Drive. The second one is that such a variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district and in the vicinity. I went up and down Alpine, and to my knowledge, nowhere in the city do we have a business that has identification signing on all four sides of the building. So I have a hard time justifying that that condition has been met either. And the authorizing, C is the authorizing variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent and purposes of the chapter or public interest. And I don't feel that's been met either, because if this were granted, they would receive more benefit than any other business in that area, and it would set a precedence for every other business to come back and want to put more and more signing, which is the reason in the intent of our ordinance is to limit signing to what is necessary. So the first three of the four criteria, I have a hard time personally justifying that they have been met. Having worked 45 years in the architectural industry, signing, graphic industry, doing various retail facilities, restaurants, Meijer stores, etc. First of all, I'll go through the signing. I'll skip B1 to start with, because that, to me, is the main focus of the building. B3 is going to have minimal or no visibility whatsoever. My personal opinion is that's a waste of time and money. B2, I don't have a problem with. It's within the square footage for Old Orchard Drive. B4, to me, if you're in the parking lot, you already know where you're at. You don't need a sign to tell me where Chick-fil-A is from the parking lot. I would venture a guess that the majority of the traffic on Old Orchard Drive is people who live in the apartments. Once they've driven by here, they're not going to need a sign. What I would recommend is, and this is just a recommendation because I don't have the final say on it, is that you take the B4 signing, which is Chick-fil-A, and put that on the Alpine side. And if you were to downsize one of your logo boxes to 4.6 by 4.6 instead of 5 foot square, you can get just under the 80 square feet that is allotted on that facade. And the survey that I did on my own is I took a picture of your logo and I showed it to 5 people, 3 women, 2 men, and asked them if they knew what it was. None of them knew what it was. It's not like the golden arches at McDonald's. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of the women looked at it and she thought it was a dog or a cat footprint. Then I asked them, have you ever heard of Chick-fil-A? And all 5 remarkably said yes. So the logo itself, being your main draw from your main traffic flow on Alpine, my recommendation was put Chick-fil-A up there and just a smaller 4.6 by 4.6 logo box, and you're under the 80 square feet. I don't see the necessity for B3 or B4, and it's in direct conflict with our signing ordinance, which is why you're here in the first place, because it's not allowed. So That's my personal say on it.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Anybody else?
I just wanted to thank you for putting together this plan. I think that we have to remember though, the area that this is located on, this is Alpine Avenue, so there's a lot of traffic that goes along there, and this is a way to draw them in. If you look at the planning commission notes, it was indicated that it was approved by the planning commission, so I think that that's something else we have to think about too, is that it already went through planning commission for approval with the site plan of it, with the signage also. And I think that, the area, I think, is what we just really have to think about too. And if you look back at the previous, the previous ZBA minute notes from 2009 and 2010, I think also helped too.
Okay. Pat, any thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
Jeff, can you make sure that you use your microphone? You just gotta press that middle button.
The middle
There you
button?
go.
All right. there.
Yep, thank
Sorry.
you.
Having looked at that area myself too, having gone by there a few times, the B3 sign, how does that sit vis-a-vis Outback Steakhouse? Because that seems really close to you guys.
Say that question one more time.
How does the B3 sign, that would be the one
Yep, north.
on north side, how does that, where does that sit vis-a-vis the Outback Steakhouse's building?
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons for the exceptional circumstances for the site. Outback Steakhouse will sit closer to Alpine Road than our building, so that's why we were looking for a signage on that facade, the north side. I do think it could probably be on the other corner of our building on the north side to get it closer to Alpine Road, and I can work with our design team on potentially, shifting it over to the northeast corner of our building versus the northwest corner of our building to get more visibility to Alpine Avenue.
Thank you.
There'd be an elevation change there. I'm recalling that Outback is a little higher up.
It's higher up, yes.
Can
We
you-
sit lower than they do.
Yeah, can you just kind of give some character there to that? What is that like for your site?
Yeah, obviously, if you're traveling southbound on Alpine Avenue, the site will sit lower than Outback Steakhouse a good bit. So obviously the road is you're coming down in elevation as well, which is why we thought it was important for that north elevation. That, and because there's the cross access between our property and the shopping center to the north, I was on site today for wasn't but 10-15 minutes, and I had over a dozen cars go through there. So that is and obviously there's nothing open for business on our site right now, but they're using that road to staying off of Alpine Avenue. So we felt like the sign on the north elevation would help promote less traffic on Alpine Avenue and more interconnectivity, which is why the B4 sign was important as well to us. The unique shape of this lot is kind of like a shotgun lot, right? It's very skinny and narrow, call it a bowling alley, if you will. So, we typically have our logo over our front door, welcoming you from your home into our home, our restaurant. So that's why we like to see that sign over the front door as well.
It is a unique location. I mean, the whole was Golden Corral too. I mean, it was just kind of a different location to put it, but Randy?
I think most of it's been said. I'll try not to repeat everybody, but I think the difficulty when I saw this lot was, as we're coming southbound, they're kind of screwed, I guess. I mean, as far as signage, because the Outback's there. The B3 sign, you probably won't even see that from Alpine.
Right.
However, with your explanation of the interconnecting, which we like to hear, because Alpine is one of our busiest roads.
Right.
And then a little history, I guess, Brian, I don't remember if you were here, maybe just you and Raj, but, we did give variances to the Golden Corral. I think, was it on the one on the Alpine side? We let them increase that substantially, I don't know if it was substantially, but a fair amount, so that that they could do that. And there again, I'm just gonna reiterate that lot is difficult to spot, with or without a building on it. More, maybe not difficult, but let's put it this way, a little more difficult than the majority of those. One thing I was gonna ask you too, the Outback pylon sign, that's a lot higher though than yours. Is there any conflict with that height, or what do you got out front for your pylon sign?
Yeah, we'd love to build a taller pylon if you want us to.
Didn't
but,
want to open that up. But, I was just wondering if that's gonna be.
Because it sits higher, and I think it is taller than what we're allowed, with the grade elevation, I don't think it'll be in conflict with our sign, with our freestanding sign. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then, one more thing and I'll be quiet. The height elevation is quite, couldn't really see that real well. I didn't take that much time, to be honest with you. Is there a retaining wall there, or is it just a graded height elevation, or between the?
Yeah, just a difference in grade between the two properties. I don't believe we've got a landscape wall
Okay.
there.
It's just that hill going down.
Just slope, just a slope, okay. All right, that's some of my thoughts. B4, I mean, I can take it or leave it. I can kind of see the argument, but the argument for it is what I'm trying to say.
I don't think that B4 is like hurting anyone behind it though either. When they pull in to see it, like you're not hurting the public by looking at it behind that. Like you're not causing any issues by having
I agree.
B4 there.
I agree. I like the theory that it helps any people that are traveling off an Alpine through the back, which is usually what I do when I go up to the Fruit Basket and Walmart and McDonald's. I mean, I love cutting through there, even a Mr. Car Wash. That's all works really beneficial to older people like me and maybe many others. So.
And that's the point of having that cross-access easement too, is to allow that traffic to be pulled off of Alpine there too.
And one of the other uniquenesses that we didn't talk about is most retailers have their front doors facing Alpine Avenue. Ours faces away. Our front door faces west, right?
Yeah, that is
And
but
that
so
was
did the Golden Corral, correct?
that Golden Corral's front door faced south.
You're right, okay.
So they did face one of the two fronting public streets. And we designed that because the shape of the lot, we had to put our square building on here. So our other building at Wilson and Lake Michigan is a long rectangular building, so we were allowed more square footage because we had more street frontage because of that long rectangular building. So to fit on this lot, to get the maximum stack to keep as many cars off of Old Orchard and Alpine, we designed it this way to have the front doors facing west. Not our first choice, but this is what fit the property the best.
Therein lies a good comment too, is you guys really do a great job on how to get that traffic through those lanes, because we know those things are backed up on a regular basis. So. Great.
Okay. Pat, did you have anything?
I agree with Roger on the B3 sign. I don't think it's necessary. I drive Alpine a lot, and coming down that hill with Outback, their sign, I don't see the need for the B3 sign. I think by eliminating that, it would give you a little extra square footage to work with on some of the other signs that you settle on. The B4, I couldn't get the packet pulled up last night on my computer, so I wasn't aware that the entrance would be on the west side of the building. Hearing that from you, that I give that some consideration. Sure. B4 might be necessary.
Okay. Go ahead, Reg.
Back in 2010, when we granted the variance to Golden Corral for their east fascia facing Alpine, was because at that time the other businesses in the area had larger signs because they were all grandfathered in. And we had revised the sign ordinance down so low that when they showed us the square footage of 35 square feet on the Alpine sign, it didn't fit, you couldn't read it, it didn't fit with the architectural fascia of the building. That's when we granted them the variance for the 80 square feet. And that 80 square feet goes just on that Alpine side of the building. They were there since 2010, so over 10 years, and they did a pretty good business there. I think they went out of business because they couldn't get help anymore. They had a hard time hiring employees to make a go of it. But to me, just like I said, from the standpoint of Alpine Avenue being your largest traffic area, I would think you would want the actual name of your business on that building. 100%. The other thing with Golden Corral is they had Golden Corral on the Alpine. Their entrance to the building was off of Old Orchard Drive. In the middle of the building, they had a vestibule. You entered both ways. So entrance versus signing isn't always relevant. You don't have to have the sign right above your door. If people park in that back lot and they look at the building and you have doors there that look like an entrance, they're gonna go in there.
Yeah, it's a valid statement. We do have a lot of doors, so, you know, we've got doors that lead into the patio.
Well,
We
you got
have-
a lot of windows. There's not a lot of entrance doors where people go in.
Yeah. And the other thing to note is, you know, we're removing one of the curb cuts on Old Orchard, the one closest to Alpine. So there was 2 curb cuts that Golden Corral used, so everybody came from the south and entered directly to the front door. So we're asking people to, you know, not enter that close to Alpine Avenue, shift them further west, which is why the sign over the front door is a worthwhile investment for us. And maybe a good compromise would be, I agree with you, Roger, and that's why we would love to have the script sign on Alpine and the script sign on Old Orchard. That's 38 square feet. We're trying to fit 4 signs as close to 80 square feet as possible. You know, maybe a compromise would be a script sign on Alpine, a script sign on Old Orchard, and the icon over the front door. You know, and if we have to get rid of a sign, you know, I would say we would have to get rid of B3 on that north elevation. You know, maybe that's a compromise.
They're only, how much are they all allowed on Old Orchard Drive? Is that limited to 35 square feet?
The way the sign ordinance currently reads is that they can have wall signage on both the Alpine side and the Old Orchard side, but the total signage is 80 square feet.
Okay. And like I was saying before, if they took that script sign that they have on here and they went from a 5x5 box down to a 4.6x4.6 box, they would be at 79.25 square feet.
And I think if we showed you a 4.6x4.6 sign, you'd see the same thing that
But at least
Golden
people
Corral
on
had the
Alpine
issue
would look
with.
at your building and say, there's Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
You're, as much as you are familiar with your own logo, the people I've talked to in this area, and I've lived in Walker for over 40 years, they don't recognize that logo. I just don't want you to put that box up there and then come back later and say, we need to tell them what this is. So, but I'm still having a hard time getting through the exceptions and why this site is different than any other site that it needs signs on 4 sides.
You mentioned about moving that B3 sign you talked about. Was that towards Alpine?
Correct.
Is that what you talked about?
If we're trying to keep cars off of Alpine and promoting that interconnectivity, moving it closer to Alpine would be beneficial.
I think that we see that as beneficial for both the motoring public on Alpine too, and allowing that use of the cross-access easement, especially Randy said that he sees that way a lot.
So the sign that you would be willing to get rid of is the B3 on the north side?
Yes, if we had to get rid of one, that's the one that
Which
I would
makes sense,
get rid
yeah.
of. And then I would look at replacing B1 and B2, make those look like B4, the script signs, and then make B4, B1 or B2, the logo.
Where does that put us then with square footage? then?
Square footage wise, the script sign's 38 square feet, so 38 plus 38 plus 25 puts us at 101, so it'd be a 21 square foot ask.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? We have a motion to close the meeting.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Roger to close. Support.
Support.
Support by Jeff. All in favor of closing the public meeting?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting's closed. Okay. Anyone want to entertain a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion, I guess. I'll be the first one I'll ever make here. The B3 sign could be dispensed with, and if they're willing to accept that, I'm going with the compromise. I do think that you are correct. The Chick-fil-A logo is not as well known. So those kinds of, unless you're familiar with Chick-fil-A and you're actually looking for it, you're not going to know what that means. That's just my opinion. But at the same time, I can understand where you want to attract customers. So that would be my motion to eliminate the B3 and let the other ones be approved.
Yeah, script or however you're. Okay. Can we
Go
move?
through the conditions for approval.
Sure.
On page 7 of 70.
7 of 70. You got a packet I don't got. Did you print off a tree? Okay, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances. These are conditions applying to the property in question as to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district.
So, anybody on the board explain to me why this lot is exceptional with any other lot that's on Alpine?
I think like he said though, that this lot is a lot narrower than what typical lots are on there.
It's
And
somewhat
that it-
isolated.
And it's set back there. I mean, it's kind of covered like we've talked about with the grading of the outback. So that's why they tried to pull the building forward so then they could have their parking in the back.
That's building placement, that's not the property.
But they had to do that because the property is narrower and longer, just like you said.
Lower.
Yeah, and lower.
It is unique, I'll say that, so.
And I think there's 3 streets that access the property versus 2.
If the elevation is an issue, it kind of makes it exceptional, in my opinion, but
I agree.
I can understand how you can look at it differently. I've driven up in Alpine, up and down Alpine since I started working at Myers in 1971.
Holy cow.
Oh God, don't remind me. Anyway, but they put me through law school, so I appreciate that. But that would be my only, I understand the height, and I looked very carefully at that. The Outback Steak building sits quite a ways higher. It also sits a lot closer to Alpine. it does cause, and from what I can tell, a sight problem with someone going south. Now, if you're going north on Alpine, there is nothing. But if you're going south on Alpine, you could miss what used to be Golden Corral completely. You could drive right by it. That's just my 2 cents.
I would agree with that. Like I said, I've driven Alpine many times. Coming south, I think because the frontage along Alpine is not extensive, really your visibility is going to be northbound and on Old Orchard. However, I do think the B1 sign, or the location of the B1 sign, gives you some visibility coming down that hill. Exceptional circumstances, I might consider that just because most of it does face Old Orchard, or at least the lot itself. And I could give you that one. I don't know if Roger would agree, but.
There's a traffic light at that corner.
I know. And a car lot right across the
Those
street.
traffic lights, it seems like you sit there for 5 minutes straight.
You
Tell
do.
me you don't look around when you're in a stoplight?
You,
You don't need to be going 50 miles an hour down Alpine and miss it.
well,
And if you miss it, you're sitting out in front of it.
coming down the hill though, you've got what's now La Fontaine Ford. And at nighttime, my folks used to live north and I visited them a lot. Coming down that, the parking lot lights, the car lot lights can be a little blinding because there's no overhead lights of any consequence on Alpine. It can be a little blinding. You come down that hill and there's just a lot of lights, a lot of visual
Like you said, from
distraction.
that car dealership, it's,
Yeah,
like-
La Fontaine
Yeah.
Ford there, it used to be Keller.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you're gonna see the pylon sign before you ever see the building.
hopefully,
And that was the
ideally,
same way it was with Golden Corral.
yeah.
You saw their pylon sign, and then you turn your head and there was the building.
Did they have all 80 square feet on the pylon, Golden Corral,
They had 80 square feet on the building,
on the building?
and they had no signing anywhere else on the building.
Okay. I'll be honest with you, Roger, I missed Golden Corral as far as visibility. I'd see it when I'd go north, but coming southbound, I didn't see it a lot. It wasn't something that caught my eye.
Preservation of rights or property rights, that such a variance is necessary for preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district and in the vicinity. The possibility of increased financial return shall not of itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. So, I think that kind of tags into the,
So are we willing to give everybody else on Alpine the opportunity to put signs all the way around their building? They're going to gain. They're not, by limiting this to Alpine and Old Orchard, they don't have any more rights than anybody else. Once you give them the right to put signs on all 4 sides of the building, you're setting a precedent to get everybody to put signs all over their building. You're gonna have a Target sign on the front, you're gonna have a Target sign all the way down the side of that, their building up there. If that goes through.
I think again though, that goes back to the different lot. Like the Target lot is a lot different than what the Chick-fil-A lot is here too, though.
no substantial detriment. The I can't pronounce that, authorizing such a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent or purposes of this chapter or the public interest. Signs aren't really gonna
I think it improves the neighbors and promotes that interconnectivity.
Be a detriment to our ordinance.
Okay,
Have all four of those criteria been met?
I think which is why we gave variances to Golden Corral, was the location of this thing, being pushed back downhill, having out,
But we were judging that to other
Right.
businesses in the area that had larger signs, to give them the same property rights as as the Ford dealerships and Outback and all of that, because those were in there. And to tell them they were limited on that one face to a smaller square footage, it didn't even look good on the building at that size. It's like a speck on the wall. That's why they got 80 square feet on Alpine.
I think one thing though we have to remember though is looking back at these Golden Corral notes, on the 2009 minutes, it said the applicant will comply with the requirements and that it does not cause any detriment to the public health, and what was indicated was that the grade level was different there, and both buildings were orientated towards Alpine Avenue when they talked about Outback Steakhouse and Michael's, rather this is more facing towards Old Orchard. So I think we have to remember that is that was part of the reasoning that we gave for the Golden Corral before.
Do you think that part of the plan, having an entrance on the west side, causes any kind of detriment? Obviously, it causes less traffic coming, I believe, in and out of Alpine. Obviously, you can get into that shopping center by a few entrances right to the north, no problem. But in this particular case, you have to swing around. Whether you're going to swing around off Alpine onto Old Orchard, or you're swinging around through that mall parking lot, you're swinging around the building. And so that causes a difference, access difference. And maybe,
The driveways are the same as when Golden Corral was in there.
well, I thought he just
You had to
said,
go on to Old Orchard Drive to get into
Right.
Golden Corral.
correct, but you didn't have to swing all the way around to the west end. That's the only point I'm making.
Because they used to have the two entrances.
Yeah, we're removing an entrance.
You said you were gonna remove a curb cut on Old Orchard.
That's right. We're converting the two entrances that Golden Corral had on Old Orchard. We're closing one off and we're keeping one open.
Okay. Will the one that's remaining be in the same location?
The one that's remaining is the same location, which is on the far west side of the property.
West. Okay, and that's to funnel them into the drive-through, right?
Right, which is why we're looking at that cross-access between properties as a road, and I think you all could probably, explain to everyone that there's 3 roads here. That would justify 3 signs, and probably have no one blink an eye at that. Like, that's how we're looking at it. If we're not allowed a 3rd sign for a 3rd road, I would love to close off that access.
Definitely additional wayfinding is kind of required, what Jeff was saying. I mean, swinging around and just all the 3 different access points. I mean, I don't know how many other Alpine businesses have that much access around them. I think there's a difference here. I don't personally care which signs you use. I mean, that seems more of an aesthetic business choice. I think the fact that there's as many as are needed just adds to the square footage. It's not like you're asking to put one big billboard at 100
Right.
square feet. So I think it does start to add up. Besides that, the B3, I mean, I don't know if I have enough information to really know if that would be beneficial or not, but the other ones I see a good need for them.
Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, we have a motion by Jeff. Looking for a second,
I'll second the motion.
second by Randy. And that is, refresh my memory, Jeff, what,
Oh, I suggesting that the B3 be removed. The other signs are up to Chick-fil-A, and I don't have a problem with B4 at all. I think that could be necessary because of the access coming in off the west side of this building. That's the way it looks to me.
okay,
And I remember what Golden Corral looked like, and I thought their sign in the front facing Alpine was huge. Way more square feet than it needed to be. That's all. But that faced Alpine only.
Can we
And it was
restrict
it was on the building, if I recall. It was on the actual physical brick
Not a
building.
gable end, yeah.
Can we restrict frontage
Do-
signage, square feet, or is it just, hey, if it's 100, it's 100?
I think you can put in there what you want, but
Do we want to state conditions with your motion, Jeff?
I personally don't know where the curb cut's going to be because I'm not sure, because of the two curb cuts that Golden Corral had, which one are you keeping? The one on the west end of the lot or the one on the east end of the
So
lot?
if you're looking at your screen, do you
Yeah,
see where
it
B,
shows right-
do you see where B2 is on the screen?
Yes,
That's an existing curb cut that we're closing off.
you're closing the B2.
Yeah, we're
Area.
keeping the one that says D as in dog, D2.
Okay, so you're
So
going
the-
way west.
That's the only access.
Yep. Well, it's interesting plan, I'll put it that way. It's even as interesting as the one in Standale.
Pat, what
So
do
I
you-
don't have a problem not having conditions, just keep within the maximum square footage that the ordinances allow based on the passing of a variance for one of these signs, which it sounds like the only one you really need, if you go with eliminating B3, the only one you need a variance for is B4.
Correct.
If I'm misreading that, let me know, but
But then if we look to change, if we're looking to put the scripts on the other two, that's where the square footage comes into play. I don't have a sign in my portfolio that's over 38 square feet from a script standpoint, so it's not like we're gonna go put a 100 square foot sign in there. The 38 square foot sign is what was designed to go on the building. From an architectural standpoint,
yeah,
it's
if I had a-
proportionate.
If I had a condition to offer, I would say no more than 100 square feet total.
Did he just say that he needed 101?
101.
101.
I'll go 101. I'll go
like, wait a
101.
second, I thought it
I'll
was
say
101.
that and I'll raise you.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jeff, supported by Randy.
Do we want to give them just 102 just to make sure if it's like 101.3 or whatever, just to make sure that we're good?
Put in what you want.
Margin of error.
Yeah, just a little bit extra. I don't think the 1 square
I
foot's gonna
don't-
matter.
That few inches doesn't make a difference. To
Yeah.
me, it's fine.
So let's make it 102 if that's okay with everyone.
Okay, so that's a condition, 102 total.
Yeah.
Maximum,
Maximum 102. I mean, as long as everybody else agrees with that.
Okay, any other, Pat? No, okay. Okay,
Roger, was I supposed to use the carbon paper?
yeah.
Did you hear him?
You
You
probably
have
don't know what that is.
You have carbon paper.
Carbon paper?
I used to have to put those into my Underwood typewriter.
Okay, so we have a motion supported. All in favor of the motions, say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Roger. It's passed
Okay, thank you.
with the conditions that
With the
they,
conditions, yes. Thank you.
PORTKO.
So while you guys are writing down and getting the paperwork, just to clarify, B3 was eliminated.
Yes.
And B4 was allowed. And B1 will change to a B4 sign. Is that correct?
Correct. A scripted sign.
Scripted sign, and B2 is allowed.
I think B1 and B2 will change to B4, and B4 will change to B1 and
Ah.
B2.
See, that's,
Pardon?
let me get this down.
Yes.
So B1 changes to B4,
Correct?
okay. B2 changes to B4,
Correct?
and B4 changes to
B1.
B1. B3 is out.
Correct.
And the total for the three signs, B4, B4, B1, 102 square feet max.
Correct.
Those are the takeaway points,
Yep.
okay?
Were those changes literally conditions or?
Should make that specific. You can change the application that's presented to you, pretty much like you did, provided that it fits in with the four conditions. So, that's why I just wanted to clarify that.
59 square feet by itself. Chick-fil-A sign is 59 feet by itself, according to their drawing.
Those right here that was provided, so that
So
38 square feet is artistic script
becomes a
sign.
B4,
Page 3 of 8,
which is 38 square
25 square feet for each square sign.
5 months?
Weeks. 5 months next year.
is also 38 square feet. And then B4 becomes a B1, which is 25 square feet.
I went in,
And the total cannot exceed 102 square feet. That's the meeting. You want to state, meeting the four standards, I assume you're just going to lay out. the-
no, it's recovering now. The surgery isn't so bad.
Yeah, that's something that I encourage you to work with Paul on going forward, because I think looking at the minutes from previous CBAs, they would just take that, put that in there as the file. So I agree with something. Yeah, I think it's a good step in the first direction, if you're gonna do first.
Need a signature.
And that may be the entire. Well,
For the applicant,
we shrink wrap.
city sign, right?
It looks like. Yeah, but by 11, so the entire box is 59
I
square.
got the special carbon paper.
This is what that should be, isn't it? What it says live area.
The library. Yeah, it'll be a example.
No,
And then the entire box, some sign codes will say you've got to expand the box, we shrink wrap it, is what I call it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Why do you charge it?
Okay.
okay, we all set with that?
Did I get him a copy of this? Yes.
Pardon?
Did I get him the copy?
Yes. Okay, we need to address the election of officers. Apparently, I was going, and there's a vacancy that hasn't been filled yet. that we need to take care of?
You were selected and sent you.
Chair.
Make a nomination of Randy for vice chair.
Support?
I make a recommendation of Pat for vice chair.
Okay, so we got Randy and Pat.
Dueling vice chairs.
Oh my gosh. Do either of you offer a speech?
Yeah, are you both gonna campaign now?
Okay, so we had the nomination of Randy. Do we have support for Randy?
No, not really. I'm in favor.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting that.
And then we have nomination of Pat, and do we have support for Pat?
I talked to Gary briefly last night.
Is this where we haul out our quarters and flip the coins?
Yeah. All right, one of you is gonna take this job, okay?
Yeah. Who's it gonna be, Randy or Pat?
Okay, do we have support of either of them? Nothing?
Thank you.
Yes,
Coming to our city again.
thank you.
Take care.
Does either of you want the job?
Yeah,
I think we arm wrestle.
No way.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm good with Randy, that's totally fine. I hadn't sought vice chair, if that's at the bottom of it.
Is this just a one-year position, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. I support Randy.
okay. We got Randy's,
I support Randy.
okay. All in favor of supporting Randy for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Randy, you got it. Now you have to show up every meeting.
You gotta get your butt in a chair here.
Yeah,
Gotta come early, all right. Thank you, everybody.
so we have a vice chair.
Was that the only open position, Brian?
Yep.
Is
Was the
that,
only one?
that, I wasn't here, so I'm not,
Three officers, we don't have a treasurer because they don't let us have any money.
That's true.
So that
Okay.
means Brian and I work hand in hand together then?
hey, hey, hey.
Hey, work it out between the two of you.
Okay, I don't have anything else, cause I,
Do we have an upcoming meeting in April or May?
Excuse me? Not that's currently been scheduled. So there's nothing on the horizon for you, but that could change tomorrow if someone comes in with an application. So nothing right now.
when is that subcommittee getting back on track, do you know?
Zoning? Yep. That's gonna come up in May.
Okay,
We, sign code went through the planning commission last week. So that's gonna go through city commission in May. So that big chunk of the code will be done here. Engineering is working on all of their components within the zoning code, so that's ongoing. So we'll bring the committee up to speed on both of those items in May, and then Chris Corey, our consultant, has laid out a schedule for the rest of the year.
okay.
The
great.
goal is to have the entire zoning ordinance updated by the end of the year.
Perfect.
Is there anything in the proposed zoning code changes applying to signage that would change what we're looking at here?
Actually, well, under the proposed code, the sign that wouldn't have been allowed would have been the west wall, which is over the entrance, and then the north wall. But you would be, so it'd be very similar to the code that we have right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Frank, Paula, I guess, getting a hard packet was optional. We could request that, and I didn't. I had a little bit of a technical issue. Can I just permanently request a hard packet?
Yep.
Please.
Me too. She could bail them. She personally delivered mine.
Yeah,
I'd request one too, because,
Yeah,
sometimes I'm coming into town from out of county courthouses and things, and I don't have an access to get to my printer in time, and I can't always rely on my paralegal and staff to get it done because work is backed up.
Sure. So who doesn't want a hard
I would like a
Make
hard
it
pack.
unanimous.
Yes,
Hard-
so
okay.
Elena's the only one who doesn't want a hard copy.
She's the only
Threw
techie.
it, it popped up.
There we go. We'll do that.
Okay,
So
thank you.
expect hard copies, except for Elena.
Okay,
I can pick mine up too, if that helps.
It's no big deal. We can put them in the mail just like we do with the planning commission packets, or
No, can I always
we'll figure it out, don't worry about
go
it.
through it on my computer?
okay. Motion to adjourn.
Support?
Motion by Roger, supported by Jeff. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
I usually get this on the weekend.
I liked it.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
adjourned without